Well, the future of car buying to me, you know what? Obviously, there's a lot more engagement with the websites and with the emails, but right now it's still about customer service, right? So we're still having our same processes. We've modified them a little bit, but people still want, us to cater to their wants and needs. And we're finding, that it's about 70% back to the way it used to be, right? With just a lot more engagement on internet and website and stuff. But people are still wanting that day-to-day engagement. They're still wanting that personal engagement. Customers come in our showroom with masks, and we have the sanitization, tables, and some of our staff wear masks, to accommodate the customers if requested, and some wear them all the time. And it's more about what the customers' wants and needs are, and we just tailor every single engagement that way. You know what? There's some customers that like, hey, do I have to wear a mask? And we're like, no, you don't have to. And then there's other ones that say, hey, why isn't everyone wearing the mask? And we'll throw them on, right? So it's all about what the customers want, and we're really making sure we tailor our services to what our customers' wants and needs are. Genesis's whole platform is to go to the customer, right? Genesis at home. So we're still doing that at a really high level, where we take the test drive there and we pick the car up and service, and then we're still getting maybe 10% of customers that want to do that on the other brands. But we're finding that customers, like, they want to come to a dealership, they want to look, they want to sit down with the salesman, they want to go through everything in detail, they want to meet the manager, they want to have their payments tailored with them in finance. So we're finding that all those things are still happening. I mean, absolutely. If the right brand or center came available, I mean, we've expanded pretty quick the last couple of years, right? So adding 2 stores in 1 year takes huge infrastructure and a lot of behind the scenes work from certain people, and obviously myself and my closest executive team. So right now we're kind of taking a deep breath and making sure our processes are tight and our policies are tight and we got the right people in place. Our company structure will be more to add stores if we did close to the other centers. So like I would add one, within an hour of Maple Ridge. I would add anything in Victoria, maybe in Nanaimo, and I would add anything in the Okanagan. But I'm not going to chase any stores in Alberta or small town BC that's 2-3 hours away or something. We're going to stick to kind of our core. So that's kind of what our group is. So I mean, it's easy to manage for the staff and for the team, right? We're really operational. We don't like to expand unless our operations are running at 90%, right? So if there's a department that we don't feel, then we really drill down until we get the right people and the right things in place. So we're really hands-on that way as a company. So, right now we feel things are going pretty good. So yeah, we might look at something next year for sure. Best way to buy a car, obviously, is do research, right? So I mean, there's so many options right now for consumers to buy a car. So I mean, it's a consumer's market, right? So everything's online. It's at their fingertips. So like on any major purchases, I mean, you can do so much research right now. You can find out what products you like. You can find out, what the best deals are. So most of the customers now are so engaged online that they pretty much know what car they want and what the price is going to be. So, very rarely does a customer come in and say, hey, show me some cars. I don't have a clue. Show me what you have. I mean, they've already said, hey, I'm here to see this. I'm here to see that. So I would say that most customers are doing their homework before they walk into the dealerships, which is good for them, and it's good for us too. It makes the process quicker. It makes it more efficient. The ones that don't and want us to spend more time showing them our products, obviously, that's where it needs assessment and maybe a little bit more detail comes in, and making sure that our staff are asking the right questions so that we find the right wants and needs for them. But like I said, if I had to answer that, I would just say, there's so much information online, do a little research. And I tell my friends and family that, okay, go on the Kot Auto Group website. There's hundreds of, 500 used cars if you're looking for used, and there's 5 different brands now. So have a look and see what you like, and then we usually circle back after, right? Yeah, my trick is I usually let either my wife or my director of operations, Jessica, or my director of accounting go in and try and get the best deal first, and then I come in after. So that's usually what happens. Come in and be the heavy after, and ask for another little touch after they've already done the negotiating. So, on any purchases, to be quite honest, that are over a couple $100, we have a tight process. We get 3 quotes, and if it's a big vendor, like whether it's marketing or social media, like even yourself, we've done some business, but you knew that I was getting other options, right? So I mean, it's just one of those things that I think is a good business practice, to always make sure that whether it's you're getting a fire protection, they're coming in and doing all the fire, doing all the quotes. Hey, you know what? Let's make sure we get a second quote. And in some cases, we've saved 25% doing that. It's just by holding all vendors accountable, and making sure they know, even if they've dealt with us for 4 or 5 years, whether it's printing, whether it's the gas where we buy our gas, or our insurance, we get 2 quotes every year. All those big things can save you a lot of money if you're just, it's very easy to just get sent a renewal and not look at it and get the standard 10% or 20% increase. So we try and hold our vendors accountable. I think it's a good business that they know that, hey, we'll deal with you. You give us good service, but we are going to get another quote every single year. Well, how a salesperson should define success, I guess, is that they have to have passion or enjoy doing it, right? So, I mean, what I find is, some people come in and they think it's what they want to do, and they don't have the passion. They just don't enjoy sometimes the grind or what's required with customers engagement, and then, I always recommend that a salesperson gives it 6 months. And in some cases, we offer guarantees just because of that, because there can be lots of pitfalls the first 1 or 2 months or 3 months. And the last thing I want them to do is worry about, I'm going to make my next paycheck. So, if we're hiring a new, and like I said, we do some commissions, some salary, and some bonuses, but it's a bit of a hybrid system. But we like guys that are just starting out in the business to have some type of guarantee for the first 3 to 6 months, depending on what they're doing. And we find that allows them and us to put a little better training platform together for them. And then we've had people that haven't been good at all the first 2 or 3 months, and then all of a sudden they just click happens and they get it, and they in the 5th or 6th month, they become our top salesman in the whole company. They find confidence. They find they finally get their own style. They take our process and they find things that work, and they have the confidence. And I've seen people that have sold 1 or 2 or 3 cars, on the first and second or third month, end up, a year from now selling 20. So I always try and tell the GMs not to throw in the towel too early on someone, and really make sure that before we decide it's not working, or they decide it's not working, that we've given them the proper training, and we can really say, hey, you know what, we gave this guy the proper tools, and he didn't fit, before we let a salesperson go. Because I've seen lots of young people come in and it didn't feel right the first or second or the third month, and then the 4th and 5th it started to gel for them, right? You know what? The customer isn't always right, but it's important to listen to the customer's point of view always, right? So, you know what? We always want to show empathy. We always want to, listen to what they have to say. And, some complaints are valid. And then sometimes they're just completely out to lunch. So, we want to talk about it, make them feel good. And, there's one a month that just sometimes is completely unreasonable, and there's nothing you can do to keep them happy. In our company, we'll get a bad review, and sometimes I'll call them and just can't understand where they're coming from. But for the most part, usually if there's a complaint, it's because we dropped the ball on something, and we have to own it. And I always tell the staff, and whether it's any of my staff, it's always about the recovery. So it's you know what, you can be wrong and you can make a mistake, but how you recover is everything. So, and you know, I want my GM calling every single complaint within one day. I want the senior managers involved, take it off the employee, and that's why they're the managers, and that's why, you know what, if we screw up, a GM should call. You know, a GM of a dealership should call and say, hey, you know what, sorry, my team screwed up. Sorry, you know, that we didn't exceed your expectations. And you know what, and you know, and sometimes we've had to have a course on how to tell our managers how to say sorry, just because they couldn't get it out of their mouth. Sometimes it's all you got to do, say, hey, this is how you say sorry. I'm sorry, we screwed up. This is how we're going to make it right. Thank you for helping us. We'll make sure that we put the proper processes in place so it doesn't happen again. And sometimes that little simple thing, that's all the customers want to hear. And I find that sometimes people are so worried about who's right. If the customer didn't have a good experience, just say you're sorry that they didn't have a good experience, and let's try and fix it, right? So I'm really getting people focused on that sort of mindset. Sometimes can be tough because egos get involved, and nobody wants to admit when they're wrong. But you know what? If a customer had a bad experience, I try and teach my teams that they should just apologize and try and fix it as quick as possible. How a salesperson can build their personal brand is, I mean, take the company they work for, right, and just synergize with that. And you know, social media is so big right now, so you know, a lot of our salesmen, you know, need to have their own Facebook platforms. We're really into videoing, right? So one of our processes, we want every opportunity to get followed up with a thank you video by the salesperson, and we track it, and you know, and it doesn't come easy to everybody, right? You know, but you know, once they have fun with it and they realize that, and you know, and it does help their closing ratio 10%, so the numbers don't lie. But no, we encourage people to brand as long as it's synergized with the company. I don't want them branding, you know, their own side hustles, and I don't want them, you know, trying to take away, like no one's bigger than the dealership. And I've seen, you know, I've seen some other people that may have a different opinion on branding themselves, you know, over their dealership. But you know, my brand is my company, right? And you know, I brand a lot personally, but it's always tied into the company. Whether even on some personal stuff where I do with my family or whatever, we're always talking about what we're doing. But the end game is it's part of, you know, I'm representing the Kot Auto Group, and so we try and teach our staff that, you know what, you brand yourselves and have fun with it, and you know, do all your social platforms, but just keep in mind that, you know, that you're part of the company and we want to represent it well. You know what, the last 6 months has taught us just to make sure that we're really dialed into what the customer's wants and needs are, right? I mean, this was new for everybody, you know, the safety precautions and everything. So, you know, we have a task force. We have someone that leads it through our whole company. She's making sure she's touching base with the other managers. You know, we do a walkthrough constantly. We have daily people that are assigned to certain things. And then obviously just making sure, you know, Hyundai, Kia, and Nissan and Genesis all have restrictions too. So they're coming in and making sure that we follow their report card as far as the safe and sound and all the protocols that are necessary. So, you know, for the most part, we're just listening to our customers. Like I said, some want to wear masks, some don't. But you know, as long as you're, you know, everybody knows right now the safety protocols that you need to operate in business. So we're making sure we do those at a high standard. And, you know, for the most part, we don't have very many complaints. You know, every once in a while, we're going to miss it, you know, and make sure that we react quickly and make sure that we fix it. Probably the biggest thing dealerships do wrong is not talk to the employees enough. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you know what, they're the ones that are, you know, boots on the ground and, you know, dealing with stuff. So, I mean, it's easy for me to be up in my office and have my own opinions, or my GMs, or even my managers, but we have to talk to the technicians, we have to talk to the advisors, we have to talk to the parts counter, we have to talk to the salespeople, and make sure that we're getting the proper feedback from them as well, on how we're doing business, and even getting ideas on how we can be better, right? So I mean, we learned that. We set up a sort of a Shark Tank from our staff. We put a contest together for the best idea, and you'd be surprised at some of the ideas our employees gave us, that just were like, wow, why didn't I think of that? And we gave I think $500 for first prize and $250 for second and $100 for third. And out of 300 employees, we got or 250 employees, we got like 50 really good ideas, and 5 that we actually could apply to the business. So I think sometimes businesses might lose sight of the people that are front and center, doing the hard work, and they can see something that's right in front of them every day and say, geez, this is silly. Why are we doing it this way? And then we're not listening to our employees enough and how to get better. I think there was one, we did some stuff for when people came into service, some type of air freshener that was in there, with water bottles we put in there. We did some other ones on cleanliness, on some things that we're getting missed of, that we're touch points with customers. Some marketing strategies were a big one. Some of the staff employees had huge marketing ideas that had been kind of keeping to themselves and never ever giving us, that we actually rolled out, that were actually really good. And even like people like, a parts person came up with a marketing idea to sell more parts, or a technician came up with how we can be more efficient on writing notes down on what the vehicle needs and for employees. And then the advisor came up with different ideas on how to engage with customers. So every department had one or two that really were good on that. So I mean, we've made it now a yearly process. The other thing that we've done right now, just to add to that, is we've done an in-house employee survey where the HR department actually sits down with every employee one-on-one, and we actually have a questionnaire, and it's open-ended, so they can rate their manager, they can rate their experiences, they can rate if something's bothering them, challenge them, they can give us ideas right during that. And we came up with a lot of good things. We just did our first store, Penticton, last month, and I'm heading out there today, actually, after this call, to go review it with the general manager and just say, hey, this is the feedback that the staff said, and we make sure it's confidential, like employee 1, employee 2, and some stuff was like, yeah, we got to be better in this area, and then some really good ideas came out of it as well. So I mean, we're rolling that out, just and I guess the biggest thing is just listening to the employees and making sure that we're growing with them and listening to them if there is something that as a management or ownership we can do better. I mean, employee engagement right now, if there's such a cost right now to replace someone and hire someone new, and I don't think sometimes, like if an advisor leaves, what it costs to rehire someone and retrain them to the company, or if one of those key possessions, a technician, what that hoist produces and everything. So it's really important that we're listening to them, and goal is retention. I mean, the younger generation now doesn't stay at jobs as longer as some of these, millennials don't. But so it's really important to keep them engaged, and they want to be promoted, and they want you to hear their ideas. So these options that I'm giving, whether it's contests, what I find contests for the best ideas, or I'm challenging them in certain ways, so that finding out, do they want to be promoted, what are they wanting to buy a house, what are they wanting to, and really making sure that we're engaging with them so that they can hit their goals, and that way they're going to stay with us longer. You know what? I'm open to new ideas, to be honest with you. We have KPIs in every department. So I mean, obviously we're going into tire season right now. So that's going to be a big one. So, we're setting goals for the tires, and our parts departments right now are up 25-30%. So I found that engaging with the parts department, parts managers, parts employees has really been a big thing. We have the WhatsApp chat group now, so we post the daily numbers on our chat group for all our parts departments, and it's just surprising how much that's helped. Just all the parts people seeing what they sold for the day, letting them know what the forecast for how much parts we wanted to sell for the month was, and then every day the synergy from all the dealerships, and we put a little contest for the top parts department. If they hit their objective, it was going to be a fine dining experience with myself, and the whole thing just came together. And I really we do this stuff in sales departments all the time, right? And then we kind of let our parts department just kind of sit back and whatever they do, wholesale tires. But you get some parts people hungry to move the needle on selling tires and accessories and making sure that we're on top of things with wholesale and the body shops. And I found that just being engaged and treating the parts department as a sales department, and having the same type of tracking and engagement with those type of employees, which normally you wouldn't, right? Because they're kind of sitting behind the counter, and parts people, they're not. It's not like they're outspoken and doing rah-rahs and stuff like that. But having just the simple thing like a WhatsApp chat group with all the parts people, and then posting things daily and having some fun with it has just been an enormous initiative for us in our company. One of the things that we tried to do with our parts department is really become tire specialists. So if a salesperson is with a customer and they're buying a new vehicle or a used one, and we want to have someone, an actual specialist at each store where they can walk up to the parts department and that person can talk like an expert on tires and and the whole good, better, best and everything. And we feel like we're selling a ton of tires, and but we just feel like having that system in place where we're tracking it and giving them goals and being engaged on the chat group has really helped us. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is, obviously we're transitioning to electric vehicles, right? So, how does that affect the service departments? How does that affect the inventory and all that type of stuff? So, you take back 2 years ago, no one was really talking about electric vehicles, and, even myself and the managers were kind of like, it was sort of a nothing burger for us. And now it's a big thing, right? So now you have to know everything about electric vehicles. You need to know your competitors, and people are just so much more environmental friendly that you have to know that stuff. And I'm lucky enough that Hyundai and Kia are leaders in that, and Genesis soon to be, and Nissan just announced something last week as well. So I have great brands that are getting that, which is really good. And so we're excited about it, but it's something to take note of and make sure that, because some of the manufacturers the requirements for these big buildings, it's a cautious sort of mindset where, like, are we going to need, these 35, 40,000, square foot buildings, if the service departments are going to be, not as busy with the electric vehicles because the maintenance isn't required as much. So it's something to take note of. It's definitely something that I'm going to keep my eye on and keep. But I think it's the future. I think Tesla led the way with it, and some of the key manufacturers, like I said, I'm lucky enough to be involved in some, have really took notice, and they're being leaders as well. So I think next year is going to be a really good year with some of the new products that are coming out, and I think the following year is going to be as well. So that would be something that that I think has changed in the car business. As far as, obviously technology is changing every year, but I think there's been a real transition to, we used to sell 1%, 5%, 10, now it's 10, it's going to be 20, it could be 30, it could be 40. So something to really keep your eye on. What percentage of our sales are going to be all electric over the next year to two? The smartest person that's influenced me. Well, I'm from a small town in Saskatchewan, right? So I think I have to. I can't say. I wouldn't be able to narrow it down on one. I would say that I had a great experience in Saskatchewan working at my two stores in Great Plains Ford and Barber Motors, and Mel Barber just won the laureate award a couple of years back. So I mean, I learned a lot of sort of employee engagement stuff, like giving the turkeys out at Christmas and stuff like that, that I've carried on in my own tradition. So some of that, good feel stuck with me. And then, when I got to Edmonton, I worked, for Kot Auto, which taught me a lot. I was at Waterloo Ford first and worked for Al and Brando Purvis. They were, they taught me a lot. And then every 7 years, I made a move. And then with Kot Auto, I had a really good experience there and learned a lot. And was running a couple dealerships with them. So I'd have to say that each one was a good experience. And I look back now and I'm I guess I'm a little bit more humble on the opportunities they had back then, and what the owners did for me and everything like that, probably that I didn't during the time. So as you get older, you start to look back and think, oh, you know what, they took care of me pretty good. And so I think that all those stores I mentioned, I would have to give all the owners a bit of a kudo that they helped mold me into being, I think, a pretty good car guy. So. We've thought about what would happen as I start taking myself out of the business, as well as if something happened to me. So we have a plan for that. Obviously I'm quite lucky to have my older children involved in the business. They're pretty young right now to just pass it over to them, but they're all in different positions and they're all learning, and I'm really happy with how good they are in their positions and how good they are as car people. So I'm quite lucky to be able to have them. And my wife's involved in the business a lot behind the scenes, and so we kind of have that going on. And we'll definitely transition into giving my older kids more as time goes on, right? So but for right now, I'm still I sort of have a 5-year plan right now, so I'm going to go hard for another 5 years and then relook at it, right? So. I'm similar to your story, as I was their hockey coach and, with the boys and stuff like that. My wife probably becomes a little bit of the buffer and everything, right? So, she tends to make sure that there's no business when we're doing the family stuff, right? So. Although it's hard not to sometimes, but having family and business isn't always easy. So I mean, I'd be be completely straight up. There's been challenges sometimes, whether the kids and myself might have, or different different children might have a different opinion on the way something should be done, or what they should get paid, or what they should be doing and stuff like that in their positions. So I mean, there's always going to be some of that, but for the most part, once we sit down and talk about it and they hear my view and I hear theirs, I mean, we've had to define that there's still going to be a final say, and that's going to be myself or Trina. But for the most part, we just talk it out, right? And that's the easiest way, and try not to let emotions get out of hand if there is a disagreement, right? So we still do games nights at least 2 or 3 times a month, where all the older kids will come over. We'll do games night, and it'll just be fun, and there'll be no business. And I have an 11-year-old too, so he gets to see his siblings, and we just have fun, and there's no business on those type of things. And we're pretty competitive at games night, so there's no time to think about business because we're so focused on winning those games. We're a pretty competitive family, and then we're also very sports, right? So I mean, whether it's NFL, fantasy, or hockey, or any of those type of things, basketball, we're pretty dialed in. Golf, we're pretty dialed into all the different sports. And for the men in the family, we're usually talking about that stuff when we're not at work.